Hi, I'm Diana Lenzi. Over these past months, I've traveled the world searching for answers, real answers about nutrition and what we should truly be eating. This journey has taken me from the cobblestone streets of Belgium, where we explored the foundations of nourishment, to the breathtaking fjords of Norway, where we confronted the reality of ultra-processed foods. Along the way, I've stopped in Switzerland and Germany, each conversation adding another piece to this complex puzzle. But what struck me the most, profoundly, wasn't found in any laboratory or research paper. It was the warmth of the people I met. Brilliant scientists and passionate researchers who opened their hearts and shared their life's work with me. Every conversation we had centered around one simple truth. The nourishment table brings us together as humans. In the final step of my journey, I was determined to find out more about how and why we eat what we do. Many people now make reference to so-called ancestral diets when trying to make sense of this. But is there a simple underlying explanation? What does the science say? For this, my journey has brought me full circle back to Rome, Italy. And there, I was fortunate to meet with Dr. Mickey Bendor, an expert in paleoanthropology.
At the age of 52, I retired. And after a while, I began to study paleoanthropology in the archaeological department in Tel Aviv University. I was always interested in hunter-gatherers, and especially in the mismatch between our life today and our lives during the evolution as a human species. I thought always that this is a source of many of the problems that we have today. We have to manage in an environment that is completely different than the environment in which we actually evolved.
It's not possible to understand the whole of a human evolution in a short video like this. But as a quick recap, it goes something like this.
4 million years ago, Australopithecus, gatherer of roots and plants, likely the first to process food, the first to walk upright. 2.6 million years ago, the rise of Panama triggered the Ice Age and the appearance of Homo erectus. How erectus evolved out of Australopithecus remains unclear. There are no bridging fossils. But erectus lived almost 2 million years, making them our longest living ancestor. They used fire, scavenged, broke bones for marrow, and became skilled hunters. 300,000 years ago, Homo sapiens emerged. Several species coexisted, including Neanderthals and Denisovans. Only one survived, us, sapiens. After hunting the large mammals to extinction, we almost suffered the same fate, but a few endured. Our genetic diversity today comes from a tiny pool, much smaller than that of the surviving chimpanzees. 10,000 years ago, we began farming and domesticating animals. That changed everything.
So let's go back to Mickey to let him help us understand how our ancestral adaptability, flexibility, and cultural innovation shaped how we live and eat today.
So everybody that was looking for, what we ate during human evolution actually came to archaeologists, because archaeologists are digging the remains of humans and human activity in archaeological sites going back to 2.5, 3 million years ago for humans.
Tell us about what your research revealed. What is it you were looking for?
Invariably, you find stone tools that were used to butcher meat. In some of them, maybe 50% of them, and there are thousands and thousands of these, you find also animal bones. That means that animals were a key component of the human nutrition at the time. The body doesn't change so quickly. So we were hunter-gatherers living in a certain way for about 2.9 billion years, but 0.01 million years, we went and became farmers. So the body didn't manage to change dramatically.
That evidence raised another question for me. If meat was so important, why fatty animals in particular?
We are really limited in the amount of protein that we can metabolize to energy. It's about 35% of the calories. So we had to solve this problem, this limitation. And the way we humans solved this limitation is by concentrating on hunting fatty animals.
In a way, our metabolism hasn't changed enough to assimilate more than that 35-37%.
Right.
And then we also changed, let's say, our habits in the choice of the animals we were hunting to find these fattier animals?
Yeah, because if you rely on hunting to supply your daily calories, you have to have fatty animal. The other alternative is to gather plants. However, we are less adapted to metabolize plants because plants in nature normally have a very high degree of fiber content. So we can handle 10%, but researchers, when they say that they tried to eat these fruits they were following chimpanzees, they just could not eat these fruits. Plants, all plants, have some kinds of toxins in them because they need protections. Plants don't escape. They stand like that. They are an ideal target of animals that come and want to eat them because all of them they all have energy of one kind or another. Even fiber is a source of energy. So they have to protect themselves.
Mickey's findings about the origins of human diet are equally shared by the well-respected professor of human nutrition from Melbourne, Neil Mann.
Well, we wouldn't have evolved if we didn't eat meat, as simple as that. Once we left the African jungles and went out, walking on two legs and traveling in grasslands and so on, there's no real plant foods to sustain us. I mean, people who try that today go bush, for instance, in Australia and try to live off the land. Unless they eat animal food, including insects, grubs, birds' eggs, and whatever else they can catch, they starve.
But it wasn't only meat that mattered. What really changed everything was our ability to process food using fire cooking and tools. This made food easier to digest, freed up energy, and supported the growth of our larger brains. Anthropologist Peter Unger calls this the biosphere buffet. Our ancestors thrived through flexibility and adaptability, eating from whatever nature offered rather than following one fixed diet. This adaptability was key to our survival.
You used the term adapting, and this is something that struck me again in what you were sharing of your research, how truly we have adapted to eating meat. So we adapted the size of our skull, we adapted our mouth, we adapted our metabolism, and the evolution of man shows how this has been such an important part into getting us to be Homo sapiens.
And there are many, many changes in our skeleton that allow us, for instance, to run. Specific adaptations that allow us to run long distances. We are not fast, so we cannot escape predators. We cannot hunt by running after our prey.
Okay.
We'll never get it. But that's why we're smart. So in the end, when the large prey started to disappear, for instance, we developed the bow and arrow, which actually we let the arrow chase the animal. Yeah.
Kind of abandoned that scheme of how we used to provide protein and fatty proteins for ourselves.
which was hunting, and we kind of started also farming animals. Has this changed the way that, again, in a way, our metabolism has adapted to the availability of these proteins?
So we did adapt. A good example of adaptation is the ability to consume lactose.
Right.
So normally in any animal has this ability at the beginning of life because we are mammals. But all animals actually lose this ability after a year, 2 years, etc. Humans, those that were in societies where milk was important, show genetic adaptability to get energy from lactose.
Along this journey, I heard many voices, and the message was clear.
Do you want to be able to eat the foods that your ancestors had in their sort of naturally occurring form? Do you want that to continue? If so, that's going to involve you making some quite definite decisions about how you shop, how you cook, how much you eat, and so on.
If we look at traditional diets of traditional populations, they have been eating very different diets from a nutritional science point of view.
Yeah.
So the combinations of macronutrients can be very, very different. But what's like the common denominator of these diets would be presence of both plant foods and animal foods, and cooking meals from both types of foods.
If we could have a diet excluding nutrient-dense foods, like certain animal foods like red meat and poultry and eggs, for instance, and dairy foods, then we put ourselves in a position that we may not be able to meet our daily nutritional requirements on a variety of nutrients.
Meat is also the food that made us human in a way. It changed our bodies, it changed our metabolism, and we've adapted to it. Now, that doesn't mean that we should base our diets fundamentally on meat. There are many other options that are available to us.
Each of these insights adds to the same truth. Adaptability has always been our strength. And so perhaps our conclusion should be that there is no such thing as an evolutionary diet. There's no perfect recipe for what you should eat. There never has been. But there is something far more valuable. Common sense about what we need and what we should avoid. And that, at its heart, is what the Nourishment Table is all about.
All scientific foundations presented in this video are peer-reviewed. The most important references are an article on the Nourishment Table published in Animal Frontiers, first issue of 2025, and results from the Pure Epidemiology study published in the European Heart Journal in 2023. Several scientific presentations have been given on the Nourishment Table, for instance, in October 2024 at Colorado State University, USA. For more information, visit nourishyourchoice.org or explore the work of Professor Frederick Leroy at aleph2020.org.